Ben and I didn't do it.
No, not here. Joining us now is Oliver Cornock, Editor-in-Chief at the Oxford Business Group. He didn't do it either. Oliver, a very warm welcome.
Oliver.
Good morning.
So, let's begin. Brexit. Plenty of angles being covered in the papers. What's caught your attention?
Well, there are a number of the obvious. You know, with the triggering of Article 50 is going to end up. It was inevitable that we'd have the Scottish element. Then we also have the elements within Theresa May's own Conservative Party that are pushing for a hard Brexit and others that are looking for a more conciliatory move. The slightly tongue-in-cheek headline we find on the Daily Mail, never mind Brexit, who won Legsit, refers to this picture of Nicola Sturgeon and Theresa May. I mean, it takes it to a very basic level when it's a very serious problem.
Well, it's caused quite a row on social media. Quite a lot of people on Twitter criticising the Mail for that
we can see the front page, actually. We'll show you in a minute.
Yeah, and there was one tweet, someone saying the 1950s have called, they want their headline back. They think
you'd never see that headline, would you, if it was two male political leaders meeting and
you
talking?
Most certainly wouldn't. I mean, Theresa May has part of her shtick has been these quite loud shoes, and she got in trouble a few months ago for some trousers. It seems to be that the media is focusing on these the clothing rather than the real substance of this very important story.
We'll talk about that some more tomorrow.
Yeah, we'll do more on that tomorrow.
And the next day. But let's now move on.
Yeah, the Arab news. Of course, this initial public offering, when it happens, of Saudi Aramco is going to be a huge deal, and they're now sort of cutting the tax rate to sort of help it along.
They're trying to maximise the value. This is a very normal process of these sort of privatisation moves where a company, or even not a state company, any company would look to boost its cash flow before it goes public. So this is quite normal. More broadly, though, it points to what the Saudi Arabian government are doing at the moment, which is to try and make the Saudi economy, elements within it, even more competitive. So Saudi Aramco is seeing its tax bill retrospectively from January reduced from 85% to 50%. That's got to be good news for that valuation, a company that could be worth some $2 trillion by some estimates.
I mean, it's going to be huge when it happens. Where will it list? That's the big question, isn't it? I mean, all the stock markets around the world are just schmoozing.
Well, Sally, that's like being asked to where the price of oil's going. Nobody quite knows. And I'm sure markets are lining up for that. Everyone would like a slice of that pie, wouldn't they?
How important is this for Saudi Arabia, that this is, you know, this particular IPO in terms of getting money in? Because, of course, they have a real problem with oil revenues
absolutely
falling.
They do. It's very, very important, not only from the money side, but it's also psychologically and important for sentiment within the Saudi economy. Huge change there. This is one of the big policy markers, I suppose, of the new system that's been put in place for generating diversified revenues.
Let's now talk about the story in the New York Times or Washington Post online. It's pretty much everywhere as well. This situation with regards to Devin Nunes, who is the Republican chairman of the House Intelligence Committee, now seen to be too close to President Trump to be impartial when it comes to the investigation about the election campaign and Russian involvement.
Sure, it's an interesting article there that I hadn't realised there are 3 House Intelligence Committee investigations ongoing into this Russian involvement. And it really, if you were in the Trump office, this is a story that isn't going away. And it seems that, well, I read on social media that I think Jared Kushner is going to give evidence to one of the committees soon. I think they're going to have to get this out in the open. The Democrats, on the other hand, are really trying, they're pushing this very hard. They've been very strong on this, but they're not sort of standing too far back because they don't want to be out of the mudslinging match that could happen. So it's a really interesting one. I don't think they want to get too stroppy on this.
I suppose that the issue for them is that for any investigation to have integrity, it's got to be seen to be impartial, and presumably once it happens, they want to be able to say, OK, this is what's been found, and draw a line under it, which, of course, if there are then accusations that the people involved in the investigation were too close to all of this, that, you know, it will continue to drag on throughout the coming years.
Very difficult.
What else have we got? We've got the Gulf News, yes.
Trump weighs bigger role in Yemen war. It says a clear signal Washington intends to move more aggressively against Iran. Your perspective on this, please?
Well, I think this is very interesting in that the Obama administration had distanced itself quite strongly from getting very involved. In the past, the focus of US involvement in this terrible civil war in Yemen has been really on attacking al-Qaeda on the Arabian Peninsula, which is used Yemen as a bolt hole since the collapse, effectively, of the state there. At the same time, Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates are waging a war, arguably a proxy war, against the Houthi rebels in the north of Yemen, which has led to this horrendous humanitarian situation. I mean, it receives very few column inches, so I was pleased to see it in the Gulf News. And for somebody who watches this, the involvement of America in lots of ways has to be a good thing, not least because their the putative first move for this greater involvement is to free up the port of Al Hodeida, which is a conduit for aid into Yemen.
And its involvement, you know, the US administration involvement, what do you think that will mean with the Trump administration? Well,
it's very difficult because a lot of Western governments have wanted to step back from these sorts of interventions. The simple fact, though, is that this isn't going away. It is a weeping sore on the Arabian Peninsula. Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates have set a lot in store by this, and it would perhaps signify a greater coalition between the US and those Gulf allies. Potentially against a resurgent Iran.
Although, I think, as far as I'm aware, the accusation is that Iran is backing the Houthi rebels,
yes.
but I think Iran denies that, does it?
Iran denies it, Saudi Arabia denies that it's a proxy war. It's two sides of the same square.
But in terms of the humanitarian crisis, as you say, I mean, that, to a degree, has that pulled, you know, the international spotlight on Yemen again, because obviously it's not just in Yemen, it's in South Sudan and Somalia and other areas. But
I'd say that the spotlight's been turned up a bit. It's been very dim.
It's as you say, it's one of those areas that does not get a huge amount of coverage. I think partly because of the difficulties of actually
and the security fallout from that's huge.
Now let's talk about this giant coin, worth almost, it says €4 million on this headline, The Telegraph, stolen from Berlin Museum in a dawn heist. I mean, this thing weighs the amount of a large fridge.
It's a ½ a metre across, you know. 100 kilograms?
I can't see some coin collector just slipping it into their collection, some budding numismatist.
There's no footage of whoever did this, or, you know, there must have been more than one individual doing this.
It's a museum
with machinery.
Cameras?
You'd think with the security systems as well. Although, of course, it ties in, isn't it, today that we get the new pound coins here in the UK,
yes.
The 12-sided ones, meant to be harder to counterfeit. It looks like that one may be 12-sided, although try spending that anywhere. I think you're going to get some questions.
Look for somebody with a forklift truck.
Well, yeah. It's reminiscent, though, of these, was it the Hatton Garden heist not that long ago. It's just amazing to think that these things can still happen.
I was going to say, there's a certain romance, isn't there, to a heist like this?
The Pink Panther.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Indeed.
Where is Inspector Clouseau?
It's the sort of thing that grabs the imagination,
yeah,
though,
it really does.
And,
the stuff in films.
When they solve it, I was going to say, you know, should we just wait for the screenplay to come out and, you know, and all the accompanying merchandise, of course, probably be worth €4 million.
Ollie, thank you so much for your time this morning. It's been brilliant to have you on the programme.
Yeah, really good to see you.
Thank you too for your time this morning. Remember, in about 5 minutes' time, you can join Breakfast on BBC One. Well, they'll have the very latest news and business and sport.
Yeah,
if you're lucky enough to be with us on BBC World, you get Ben and me.
Yeah, we'll be bringing you some more world news. But as I say, on BBC One on Breakfast, they'll be looking closely at the lead up to Article 50, of course, being triggered tomorrow as Britain begins the formal process of leaving the European Union. We'll be talking about that in the papers tomorrow, so if you can, join us then. But stay with us here, if you can, on BBC World.
See you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.